We've been hoodwinked. We've been hoodwinked for over 100 years, and what they're doing is they're now putting on the handcuffs. They're setting up the electric chair, or the electric grid, so to be more accurately. And this is all weaponized, all planned, and this is we're the mice in the cage, and the cage is going up around us, and the feeding of the material to us is all geo-designed, and some of the rats, the ones that are still useful to the cartels, will be permitted to live for a period of time in the final days of what they think is their final solution, or their final revolution. Testing 1, 2. Am I on?
Yeah, come in and out, Gary. Just keep talking, please.
Okay. We saw experiments with our mind for the last couple of decades concerning so-called color revolutions. And these revolutions, we were told we needed to support because of the atrocities committed by these various national governments. You're looking down at the Yugoslavia, for instance, and they created a whole template, a whole movie about how wonderful it was. Their movie was called Bringing Down a Dictator. And, of course, this was an attempt, well, it was a success, by the international cartels to take down a nationality to pave the way for multinational United Europe, the European Union, in which they totally control. These types of movies were massaged and manipulated and put into tea parties and Operation Occupy groups as if it were a good thing, and they use these parallels, these fairy tales, in order to set up the mindset for what is going on here inside the United States now, which is at the not just the early stages of what happened there, which brought them destruction and death, just as it did in the so-called North Mediterranean Spring in Libya and in Syria and in other countries in which they're pulling down the national governments and installing their more radical puppets. And the same thing is occurring here inside the United States through the United Nations ICLEI. ICLEI is a front for the World Bank. It's in virtually every community and county and city inside the United States. And they have somewhat of a velvet glove because they've been highly trained through such organizations as Tavistock in England, which was originally designed to phantom or delve into the minds of the people that had fought in World War I to get at the psychological core in order to manipulate people. And of course that institution still exists, and it exists in tandem with the various organizations that Reagan put through in the early 1980s in the Endowment for Democracy. And if people go through the letterheads and the names for these endowment for democracies and institutes that are funded by ex and current Republican and Democratic has-beens, you'll find it fully peppered with members from the CIA and the Defense Department and the Federal Reserve. We find that the extermination, the chemtrails that is run by James Schlesinger, former head of the CIA, is run out of McLean, Virginia, and it's called Operation Cloverleaf. And we look a little closer, and you'll find that James Schlesinger also runs the Belfer Center, which is headquartered at Harvard. The former head of the Belfer Center was John P. Holdren, who wrote the book Ecoscience Advocating, Putting Stirulence in the Food and the Water and the Air. And, of course, they're following through. And the people are apparently taking it. We're all struggling to wake up our friends, but this quiet poisoning has been occurring for some time. This is somewhat like the play Arsenic and Old Lace, where the ladies just put a little bit of arsenic in the drink at a time, so as not to just have somebody keel over at one time and figure there might be a murderer in the room. Well, I'm afraid to tell you, and I think a lot of you already know, that we have a tyranny here in the United States, and all too many people are satisfied with looking and describing the results of it rather than naming the tyrants. And if you can't have a tyranny without tyrants and conspirators, and those are the ones that need to be named if we're to make any headway. And if there's no consequence to their actions, the only result will be in our death and our enslavement as it's spinning out. There's a number of ways to become active, immediately, and that is to protect your own family, your own household, your own friends and neighbors. Look at Thanksgiving as an opportunity to broach topics that in the past you've avoided, and that is both religion and politics. Get your soul straight. Look at what we have in the future. It's real easy to denude the pretenders who lead both the Republican and the Democratic Party. It's just a game. It's a Punch and Judy show. It's a fixed fight. It's a fixed fight in which we lose and they win. And you also need to kind of pull yourself back from the knee-jerk reactions that we've all been trained to use when we hear something out of line. We've been treated like mice, and we tend to emote rather than think. But only thinking and action is going to get us out of this. The call for the reduction of the world's population is universal, meaning universal. Even such people as Ted Turner, who funds the United Nations and has committed himself to $1 billion towards that organization. We look back at the organization. It was made up in San Francisco, with its first acting head was Alger Hiss, who was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is the heartbeat, the hub, the breeding ground for trainees to impose this world government. They, in concert with the secret Fabian Society of England, the Rhodes Scholars that have permeated the United States. You look at Senator Fulbright from Arkansas, who has not only acted according to his scholarships to the Cecil Rhodes Scholars, but there's a huge scholarship fund under his name as Fulbright Scholars. These people are picked from your community, and they're sent and educated to be hands-on to this world government, which is coming down as a huge net, a dragnet over all of humanity. Okay, yeah, I'd like people to load up not only on food and making themselves strong and building up their nerve, but also build up on the information that you have. Most of the operation that's moving the world in the direction that it is based on total nonsense and lies, whether it be global warming, which is a linchpin of all of Agenda 21, and it's the only excuse left that the bureaucrats and those leaders and facilitators that are placed inside them with, by the various tax-exempt foundations. Global warming is their main cause, but including the dismissal and showing that global warming is false, or at least it's not man-made, you have to include the conspirators themselves. During the early 60s, or late 50s and early 60s, there was a group by Dr. Fred Schwartz who was called the Anti-Communist Crusade. And of course, what he did is he got people involved in the ideology and the talking this and being mad at the communists, with never mentioning the conspirators themselves. So we found that even some of the foundations and the communists themselves were supporting this particular type of leadership, this tactic, which left out naming the conspirators. And we need to do this with whatever operation they're using or coming to us at the time. And this thing is linear. This thing goes back for ages. But just going back 100 years, we see that it was Colonel Mandel House, who was the right-hand man and head associations and lived in New Haven, Connecticut, which is the headquarters for the Skull and Bones. He was a right-hand man for Woodrow Wilson, and he was the facilitator of Woodrow Wilson in putting together all of the plans that happened in 1912 and 1913, from the Federal Reserve to the popular election of U.S. senators, which destroyed the states' rights before the popular election by the voters, which the newspapers can easily manipulate with their headlines, like Randolph Hearst and others. And people today are the Bill Gates and McClatchy newspapers and the Gannett papers. Gannett papers also located right near McLean, Virginia, right next to the CIA. You'll find that Congressman Callahan, years ago, way back in the early 1900s, talked about how the money monopoly picked up the major newspapers in order to massage the minds of the American people. But Colonel Mandel House was very important. You'll find that there is a Karen Elliott House, works for the Wall Street Journal. She is married to Peter Kahn, who's a member of the Bilderberger Society, and she's a direct relation to Colonel Mandel House. These people do not leave the scene, and once, if we concentrate too much on a Rockefeller or a Rothschild, we kind of miss the rest of the family that's been engaged and is part of that army that's working against our freedom and literally our lives. We find that George Pratt Schultz, who is still alive here in California, still active. They have together a front here called California Forward. It's actually an extension of the Rockefeller Chase Finance-backed Common Cause, which is the largest lobby in the United States. And I'm sure that your state has something similar. But George Pratt is the name of the oil family that's associated with the Rockefellers, and it's the name of the very headquarters that the Council on Foreign Relations has worked out of for years in New York City. It's called the Pratt House. You go back to George Pratt Schultz's father, and his name was Dr. Burl Schultz, and he was the personnel director for an outfit called the International American Corporation. And they were located at 120 Broadway. They were the ones that helped fund the Bolshevik Revolution. The address of 120 Broadway is very important. It was a headquarters for the Bankers Club. It was a headquarters for GE. It was a headquarters for J.P. Morgan, National Bank. It was the headquarters for the first ambassador from the Soviet Union, by a guy by the name of Martins. And today, 120 Broadway is owned by Silverstein, who owned the Twin Towers and put the insurance on those puppies right before 9/11. So the connections of these people are solid. You can follow it like you can go down your backbone and see that this is all connected. And the And a lot of this information used to be very rare. When Dr. Anthony Sutton's book came out on America's Secret Establishment, exposing the skull and bones, the material he got from a lady whose father and grandfather were both members, there were intelligence agencies around the world just dying to get the early copies of that book. That book is available for the people listening right now free online, and they should know about it as much as any of these intelligence agencies needed it back then. You need it more right now, because the skull and bones is the nervous system that penetrates the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, and the Council on Foreign Relations. And there is a good book. I imagine that Dr. Deagle has it for sale or available. It's called Who's Who of the Elite. And I encourage you people to buy that. I think they've also created a disc which has the members of these major corporations or organizations that is a leadership against our freedom and our lives. And I think that it has the list of Skull and Bones member going back to its founding from 1832 to up until the last few years. And you need to know these people. You need to know where they live. They need to be just as afraid of you are, more afraid of you than we are of them. If we know where they are and what they're doing, and that these people are responsible, not every member is. I don't think I need to say that to your audience, but people that occupy these organizations are the vanguard. They're the SS of the tyranny that's being brought down on us now. In fact, the SS is not far-fetched whatsoever when you look at Brown Brothers Harriman, and you find out that the Skull and Bones Harriman and Prescott Bush and Roland Harriman and these other people were instrumental in financing both Hitler and the Soviet Union. The communists, or our enemies, have not existed without their consistent and constant support. Just as we see in the so-called Arab Spring, it's the United States government that's funding Al-Qaeda in Libya, because Libya it was the most advanced country in Africa, and it led to the desire of nationalism and independence for other countries. That could not remain. They needed to be put under NATO. Ambassador to NATO, and his son, William Henry Draper III, was inducted to Skull and Bones. He was an active Malthusian. He was one of these Ted Turner types, and he was part of the Population Action International, of which both Henry Draper III and George Pratt Schultz of Standard Oil are members. And, of course, they're both members in California here of the Bohemian Club, which plaque outside its door says, talks about busy weaving. Busy weavers come not here. And, of course, they just don't want to be discovered. And that's where they use their cremation of care, and they murder children in effigy. These people have, such fine, high moral standards. But again, so much of this stuff is dependent on their lies. The lie of the murder of bin Laden. I think it's very important to still go back and use the documentary evidence that we have that 9/11 isn't 15 box cutter carrying people from Saudi Arabia. In fact, none of their story makes sense at any time ever. So it's mostly people from Saudi Arabia. We invade Iraq. Their lies go on, and for the thinking people, you can penetrate. We find that the JFK story was so incredible that there's hardly a soul that still believes that, except the government people that are paid to stay in line. There was a miraculous discovery, or a very brave person whose name is Judith Very Baker. She was Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis and right up into the time of the JFK assassination. And her story was included on The Men Who Killed Kennedy that was put out by the History Channel. They were threatened. The story I was told was that they were threatened to not show it by Gerald Ford because he got a call from Mrs. Johnson, the president's wife, and so they showed it only one time, and it went into the archives. But if people are diligent, they can find that issue, and they'll find out that Lee Harvey Oswald, she kept very diligent at keeping a scrapbook of her interface with Oswald. She worked with him. They became lovers. They became involved with David Ferry, who was working with Dr. Mary Sherman of Dr. Mary's Monkey, where they're creating cancer viruses. The story is just fantastic, but it's out there, and it's very tangible and very provable. But by going back and looking at some of these conspiracies that people don't have so much investment of, at least younger people today, they might be able to look at it and see how that template is used, and to gird themselves and be leery and spot the lies that they use on us today. They were planning way back then with McGeorge Bundy, who was a Skull and Bones member. His brother was head of the CIA for 10 years, William Bundy. In fact, William Bundy, who was head of the CIA for 10 years, gave money to communist Alger Hiss's defense. Now, McGeorge Bundy headed the Ford Foundation and helped fund the first Bilderberger meeting. So the biggest mindset, the biggest obstacle for people to get over in their minds is they always put a Hegelian, they line up the history and the institutions outside into a left-right paradigm. When they think the communists are the radicals in the street and the bankers are the ones that are going to keep law and order. They have to remember that communism is not the people trying to overthrow the banking establishment. Communism is a tool of the banking establishment used to enslave the people. Because communists and socialists want to centralize power, that is the reason why the conspirators use and promote the socialist and communist at every venture, until they want to change the puppet government, and they'll move in with a right-wing dictator. Of course, the Russell Trust, which is the name for the Skull and Bones Corporation, the very founder, William Russell, was engaged in drug trade in China and across the world, and they still have been. We see that in South Vietnam, we had Lieutenant Colonel Bull Greitz come back from the Golden Triangle with video footage saying that the top purchaser of drugs was number 2 in the White House under Caspar Weinberger. It was Richard Armitage, and he stayed and I think he's still an operative under Obama. But some of these guys never go away despite the exposure, because we haven't been able to break the paper media, get through the wall of lies. But we see the same thing now in Afghanistan, where the drugs are protected, by our government, and the damage, of course, is to our sons and daughters that think they're going off to fight for the United States when really they're commandeered. It's no different than the War of 1812, when the British were coming and taking American men off American ships and making them fight in their wars. That's exactly what's happening today, and it certainly is reason enough to declare war against our occupiers, which is the White House and both the two major political parties. Again, if you go back to this McGeorge Bundy, who's running the Ford Foundation and funding the immigration and the Black Panthers, he funded a new constitution in Santa Barbara, was the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions, and they put together a constitution that would serve the multinationals. And that was put together by Rex Togwell and Mr. Hutchinson from the University of Chicago. But they had prepared a long time ago. It is now a defunct organization because they got their material out. It's been digested by enough professors around the country and across the world that they've moved into a different stage. But any stage where you can call them on their lies and prove it, they have just lost all that energy, all those decades, all those years, all that money in pushing their propaganda to get people into a stage where they're going to give up, or they're going to be ending up fighting the wrong enemy. And by educating yourself, you're not going to be wasting your time. And they've got materials out there all the time designed to misinform. One other example that some people out there might be familiar with is the movie IOUSA. They actually got a couple clips of Ron Paul and other people in there. They had some students from Philip Exeter school back east, which is a grooming school. It's one of 10 schools that grooms people for the conspiracy. It's called the 10 Admissions Organization. But they had people in the movie talking as if they were conservatives, and a lot of money people that sell gold and silver, and financial editors and columnists promoted IOUSA, but it was put together by Pete Peterson, who had been for maybe 14 years ahead of the Council on Foreign Relations. Pete Peterson has his own foundation. He's part of Blackstone, which bought up one of the power companies over here in the Monterey Bay area, with Alan Schwartzman, his vice chair, who is a member of Skull and Bones. Okay. I was talking earlier about weaving spiders come not here as the slogan for the Bohemian Grove, and if you just put a little pause after spiders, you'll get the message. They want you to think that there's nothing going on there, nobody here but us chickens, so that all those powerful men show up, and they post on their door, if you're planning stuff, don't come here. But in all actuality, the very statement says weaving spiders come not here, which is like a posting, don't show up. And of course, we know that the Manhattan Project and other very serious things that affect people worldwide happen at the Bohemian Grove. And I know Anthony Hilder's been on top of doing a lot of expose there and has done a terrific job. There's a couple other good items for people to search out. I think the Jesse Ventura's material on the fusion centers is available. Dr. G. Edward Griffin has an outfit called Freedom International, in which he tries to recruit people from around the world to get active. And there's an outfit called Freedom Advocates, which specializes in Agenda 21 information. Well, they tend to be more of an archive. The material is there so that you can gird yourself with the information, and then go out there with the truth. But again, we're like a big paper mache or a piñata. We're wrapped with a false figure, and I think one of the best statements ever made was before the press itself by journalist John Swinton. And he said, there is no such thing at this date in world history in America as an independent press. There's not one of you who dares write your honest opinion. I'll skip some of this. If I allowed my honest opinions to appear in one issue of my paper, before 24 hours my occupation would be gone. The business of journalists is to destroy the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, and fawn at the feet of mammon, to sell his country and his race for his daily bread. I know it, you know it, what folly it is toasting to an independent press. We are the tools and vassals of rich men behind the scenes. We're the jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, our lives are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. And I don't think I can get more superlative than that. But that's the attitude people should have whenever they pick up a newspaper, to rely on pure misinformation that puts pieces on the table that are either misrepresented or misdescribed, and then you try to work with them and put them together, you're not going to be able to succeed for yourself. You're not going to be able to protect your family or protect your lives. So you've got to go to the alternative information that Dr. Bill Deagle has provided bravely for all of these years. Let's see here. Again, the way they have brought 3 or 4 different powerful things together to exterminate our lives needs to be kept in tow. Today, over the Monterey Bay area, we've got the chemtrails that are just crisscrossing, turning on and off, and making curves and tic-tac-toe in the sky. This is run out of Virginia, McLean, Virginia, and it's called Operation Cloverleaf. They use the old planes from Evergreen International, which is the old Air America. Again, it's all tangible. You can even Wikipedia this information. It's so well known to anybody that would bother to look that Air America has been part of the CIA operations. You can go to the front page of USA Today last year in May. Front page, they referred to toxic dust. The scientists referred to it as worst case scenario. So you've got people that are picking up cancers at young ages and everywhere. I know them, you know them, we all know them. But we're not out there loud enough yet to have them to stop this. Your local council people, your local supervisors have the control over the airspace that they're dumping this stuff on you, just as they have control over the water that goes into your pipes and the fluoride that's put into it. And the most sophisticated practice that they've done is this technology with these murder meters or spy meters that were developed, and we see from Fort Meade that they talk about, they brag about what they can do about changing the frequencies on it to make you either dizzy, nauseous, or even unconscious. And Deborah Tavares, I don't have her website, but she found a fantastic 120-page document from NASA, and they talk as rudely and crudely about life and death as you would find any drunks in a bar about what they can do to you, and it is sensational. It should be on the front page of every newspaper. It should be on every radio station and on every TV screen. But I haven't had a chance to digest the whole project. But it is the most sensational, dramatic, indicting, revealing the minds of people that have this power and what they're quite willing to discuss doing to we the people with it. And it has everything from changing us to working animals to outright death, and we're almost walking mulch in their mind if we can't be used for something better. But the wars that are heating up in the Middle East is a replication of the color revolutions, and give an example of some of the color revolutions, which the CIA and the National Endowment for Democracy, which was under Reagan. Now, a lot of people think of Ronald Reagan as a conservative. He wasn't. In fact, I ran across in my garage, I was cleaning out some boxes, and there was a reference in one of the letters there to Red Ronnie. And this is from an actress that worked down in Hollywood. He was known as Red Ronnie through the 40s. He did propaganda movies for him. He helped produce one of the movies or film pieces to promote Mao, and I think it was a Democratic Committee for a Far Eastern Policy. He was for 13 years on the letterhead of the United World Federalists, pushing for world government, together with Cord Meyer, who was a key intelligence officer that helped put together with Tom Braden, CIA, the makings for a united European Union. And there they went in and they went over the local, domestic, national, and sectional and religious organizations and funded some and attacked others with American money in order to get Europe to the position it is right now. And of course, they've been doing that here. All of this has come home. These color revolutions and this united Europe, all the techniques that they have learned in order to accomplish what they've done there and to overthrow these other countries. Some of the countries, for instance, would be Georgia, that's referred to as the Rose Revolution, or the Orange Revolution in the Ukraine, or the Lebanon, the Cedar Revolution, or the one in Kuwait, which is called the Blue Revolution, or the Iraq, the Purple Revolution, and then what we see in Tunisia and Libya and Syria today. These are warm-ups for what is going to occur here. We see the racial division that's being pushed by the media, MSNBC, and of course General Electric. General Electric was there at 120 Broadway when the Bolshevik Revolution led off in the Soviet Union. General Electric is here today. General Electric funded Ronald Reagan. Red Ronnie, as he was known in Hollywood, had all kind of contacts. He was referred in his own book, Here's Arrested Me, to Dory Sherry. Dory Sherry was the head of the ADL, and